All right, let's go ahead and get started since it's 6 minutes past the hour. Welcome to the afternoon session where we are going to talk about building your brand and what you need to be working on as young professionals to get ready for your career. And then we're going to have some advice and concrete tactical things you can be doing to look for and to set yourselves up to secure that first job when you get out of college or university. I'm John Hark. I'm a director with Bertling Logistics in Houston, Texas. We're a German-owned ship owner and global logistics group. And I'm also an adjunct professor at Texas A&M at the Maritime Academy in Galveston, Texas, where I teach a ship chartering class. I've been teaching for 20 years and have been working in the industry for over 30 years in the maritime and logistics industry. So that's a little bit about me, and I'll let Mary Ann introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here this afternoon. I'm Mary Ann Richards, the Director of Career Services at the Massachusetts Maritime Academy in Buzzards Bay, Mass. I've been here 13 years and my career has been in higher education. I've worked at several different colleges and universities with young adults, and I really love that. So I'm looking forward to following the presentation after Professor Hart goes and then speaking with all of you at the end a little bit. Thanks.
And we've got a fairly small group, so feel free if you want to turn on your cameras. We can have this interactive. If someone has a question, we can put them down in the chat to sort of be efficient with that. And we can have Q&A at the end of the two presentations, and we can also look at answering them during the presentations as well. So this can be sort of a conversational interactive session. And since we've got not a lot of people here, why don't we go around and just do some quick intros, just a one-liner about yourself. And we'll start with the Northeast Maritime Institute. I see there's a few of you there. So if you have your microphone on, if you guys could just quickly give us a one-liner and introduce yourselves.
Okay, Mr. President. All right, we are Northeast Maritime Institute. We're located in Fairhaven, Massachusetts, and we are a 2-year private maritime college. We're an expedited license and program.
Okay. Candy?
Candy Negretto, Port of Tacoma, past president of the Tacoma Propeller Club, regional vice president, international, and president of the Women's Propeller Club.
Anik?
I'm from Nantes, past president of Nantes Saint-Nazaire. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm on the vice president of the North and Central Europe region.
Thanks. Ben Matheson.
Hello, my name is Benjamin Matheson. I'm a student at Texas A&M University Galveston and the secretary of the Student Association of Maritime Administrators, SAMA. And very pleased to be here tonight and learn about growing my brand. Thank you, Mr. Hart.
And Jacob?
Howdy, everybody. My name is Jacob Coppage. I'm currently a senior at Texas A&M at Galveston, and I am also the president of the Student Association of Maritime Administrators, and I'm currently a business development intern at Breitling. So,
thanks. Alejandro?
Hello, everyone. My name is Alejandro Espinosa. I'm currently a senior at Miami-Dade College in Miami, Florida. I'm studying logistics supply chain management, and I already have my my Greenbelt Six Sigma. That's the farthest that I've been. I don't have a field experience, but that's what I'm here for, to get knowledge out of everybody. Thank you.
And Blessing?
Hi, everyone. My name is Blessing Fashade. I'm from Nigeria. Sorry, I can't have my camera on because it's a little it's dark already here. So I'm a cadet and I'm also a student of the University of New Orleans, but I'm not in New Orleans now due to some reasons. So I'm also looking forward to learn from this program to also develop my career as a cadet in the industry, and because I'm really hoping to become a shipbroker soon. So I'm really looking forward to learn from this seminar in the trade industry. Thank you.
Great, thanks. And just for good order, Cheryl, since we can see you, can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm Cheryl Rothbard. And I am the Associate Executive Director at the headquarters of the International Propeller Club. I work very closely with all of the students. And so if anyone needs any information or wants to join any one of our ports, I am here to help you. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl. And I see Joel. I'm not sure if he's there, but Joel, or if you're there, could you quickly introduce yourself? You're muted. You're muted, Joel.
There we go. I'm Joel Whitehead. I'm the International Executive Vice President, so I'm kind of like the Chief Operating Officer. I was formerly the International Elected President from 2017 to 19. And for some reason, the Board of Directors decided they wanted me in this job. So here I am. But I've been involved with the Propeller Club for many years. I think I first became acquainted with the Propeller Club about 1982 when I was a lieutenant in the Coast Guard, and I was asked to go to a Propeller Club meeting. And when I came back from it, I was just amazed at the networking possibilities and getting to meet everybody that was important in the port. And I've been going to Propeller Club meetings since then. So it's a great organization, and we're really glad to have you all here.
And Joel, how long was your career in the Coast Guard?
38 years.
Thanks. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my presentation. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to start with some statistics. I want to talk about building your brand, and more importantly, building trust within your brand. And I'm a shipbroker by training. I know one of the students here today, Blessing, talked about becoming a shipbroker. And when we talk about being a shipbroker, and I think it carries over to anybody in your career, you need basically the trust of your clients, and you need certainly the trust of the market that you work in. And you can equate that to being a student in university or college or even high school. And as you're in that stage of your life, you're already starting to build a brand. And so you need to build that trust within that area that you're in, as well as already within the industry that you plan to go into. But let's start with some stats. So 44 million. There are currently about, and this was pre-COVID, but 44 million positions in North America. And I know we have some international scope to the Propeller Club, of course, but I'm talking specifically with these stats, North America. There's 44 million logistics and maritime positions in North America. So that gives you an idea of the breadth of the market that you can go to work in. And pre-COVID, and this has gone up, if you read about what's going on with the supply chain and the demand for labor, we know that it's high right now, but pre-COVID, there were something like 1.4 million openings. My wife keeps track for her job on LinkedIn, logistics and maritime and supply chain openings. And every time she goes on, she's telling me she's seeing 500,000 new openings in maritime and logistics positions. So there's lots of jobs out there. 6 to 1, again, pre-COVID, was the number of openings to every qualified person, speaking to North America. And you could probably put this globally as well, because the talent gap exists around the world. So 6 openings to every qualified person. And this is as of a couple of years ago. That was expected to grow fairly quickly to 9 to 1. So 9 openings to every qualified person. I would venture to say we may even be past that statistic now, when you hear about the demand for labor right now in the maritime industry and logistics and supply chain in general. What is sort of worsening that problem, or hastening, let's say, this issue of labor and a talent gap in the industry, is this number, 10,000. And what this number is that, and it's in North America, this stat is done, it was developed by the Pew Research Group, but starting in about 2010 and going to 2030, 10,000 people in the US will turn 65 every day. And that rate of 10,000 people turning 65 every day will go until 2030, at which point more than a quarter of the population in the US will be over the age of 65, and certainly a large portion of that well past the age of 65. And this, of course, is when we talk about baby boomers around the world on a global basis. The baby boomer generation is a large generation. And as they're retiring, every industry is feeling the brunt of those retirees. So you can look at talent gap in nursing, in education, in the energy business, in IT, in law enforcement, in maritime, in logistics. We're all facing a talent gap, and that's because we have this exodus of workers from our various industries. And I would say that that's even been made quicker or worse due to COVID, because we saw companies cut back quite a bit during the pandemic over the last almost 2 years now. And so we saw people taking early retirement. So that 10,000 number, probably, at least on a temporary basis, has grown larger. And then this number is interesting, and this is pre-COVID, so it's maybe even harder for them now. 32% of companies polled in a poll that a group did had not created a pipeline of talent. So 32% had not created a pipeline of talent. Those people are definitely feeling that now. And 38%, only 38% of executives polled in maritime and logistics said that they were extremely or very confident that their companies possess the staff to effectively deal with today's logistics and maritime issues. Remember, this is pre-COVID, this poll. So they were already saying just the run-of-the-mill issues they were facing pre-COVID was already an issue for them, and that only 38% felt they were ready. So imagine those companies now with the challenges that we're facing with the supply chain around the globe, that is even worse for them. So there is plenty of opportunity, I would say, for all of our young people that are coming into this great industry. So when we talk about building your brand and building trust in your brand, you can think about it like Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola, there's trust. If people like Coca-Cola, they trust Coca-Cola. People like Starbucks, they have trust in Starbucks. And so what brand trust comes from, and it's just like marketing products, when we talk about marketing ourselves and creating our own brand, is time and consistency. And so if you think about Starbucks, that trust is developed over time and they've been consistent. You can go in a Starbucks in South Korea or Houston or anywhere in Europe, Middle East, and you will get the same feeling that it's the Starbucks from where you're used to going. So that's consistent, and they've stayed that way over time. Coca-Cola has stayed the same over time. So brands build that trust with time and consistency. They can't be a flash in the pan. And that absolutely equates to us as people when we want to develop trust in us, either as students that will be coming out into the workforce or once you start your career. So that brand is time, that trust is time and consistency. And this is the Olympic logo, and I'm going to come back to this at the end, and I'm going to make a connection between the Olympics and you being in college or university or even high school right now. So when we talk about standing out from the pack, you notice here this light bulb, and I like this image. People are drawn to it. So the light bulb is certainly standing out. It's the one that's lit up, and people are drawn to it. So when you stand out, people are drawn to you. And of course, you want to stand out for the right reasons. And also remember too, when you do stand out, some of your friends and your classmates, you may be standing out more than them, and you may be sometimes pointing out what they're not doing, and they may not like that. And you just can't really worry about that. You're building your brand, you're building your experience. And so you need to focus on what you need to do to continue that in a positive way, but you are standing out. So as we go through this presentation, I want you to think about ways that you can incorporate these attributes into what you're doing on a daily basis and building these attributes, and think about ways that you can bring these up when you're interviewing for jobs or when you're applying to jobs, and to put into cover letters and resumes. So over the 30 years that I've been in the business and the 20 years that I've been teaching, I've gotten a really good look at what students can do to help themselves and what they do that maybe doesn't help themselves. And so what I want to focus on today is what I look at now is sort of the perfect recipe that if you come out of college, if you come out of school, with these attributes, I can almost guarantee you are going to have a job waiting for you when you finish. So make note of these and plan to work on them little by little on a daily basis. And we'll come back to that with the Olympics as well. So cultural awareness all around the world, especially in the maritime industry, being an international business, whether we're sitting in Asia, Europe, the US, Africa, Middle East, wherever you are, South America, there's a good chance that you're going to be dealing with other cultures. And so it's really important that as soon as possible, you start to understand and learn about these different cultures so that you're aware of their customs and their practices. If you can get the opportunity, travel to these places. If you can do it with a study abroad program, I know Ben Matheson, who's on right now from Texas A&M, he's on our semester abroad over in Copenhagen. So he's taken advantage of that. Even if you have to travel on the cheap as a student, of course, that's been hard to do, nearly impossible to do with COVID, but let's put COVID out of the picture. You need to build your awareness of various cultures around the world, and think about it too, that if you go to work for a company and maybe you're interested in the Japanese culture or some other Asian culture, and you've been able to travel there and you live in the US, perhaps that company has a department or a division that deals with Asia or Japan, and maybe you become a subject matter expert and that helps you get a job. So do everything you can, travel, read the news, at school, get outside of your comfort zone, spend time with people that you maybe normally wouldn't spend time with, learn another language, but work very hard on building your cultural awareness of as many different cultures around the world. Next, liberal arts. I used to look at liberal arts classes and think, okay, maybe they're an easy elective to take. And as I got older and I got more interested in philosophy and history, I realized the importance of liberal arts. And I wish somebody would have told me the importance of the liberal arts classes back when I was in college at A&M myself. So what my suggestion here is that as you're looking at electives, think about liberal arts type electives like psychology, philosophy, the sciences, things like this, writing classes that will help you build skills to make you a better leader. The US military, for instance, sees a lot of strength and they see the positives of liberal arts educations. And a lot of people that go into international work and companies that work on an international basis, they look for students that have these sort of liberal arts attributes to them. So wherever you can, look at taking the liberal arts classes as electives as you can. Don't just take them as a blow off, really focus on them. And that will help make you a more well-rounded person. You may have to do some of this on your own. Maybe you pick up a philosophy book on your own or a psychology book on your own, or read about history on your own. So this is something that you can work on through your school where you're getting your education, but for sure it's something that you need to work on outside of school on your own. So focus on liberal arts. International knowledge. This is sort of related to that cultural awareness. But what I would say with the international knowledge is that you want to be aware of what's going on around the world from a business standpoint. And there's lots of news sources out there with the internet today. And if anybody's interested, I can share a whole list of sites that I follow myself to get my news every week. And there's podcasts as well that you can listen to. So you need to be up to speed with what's going on in Asia, what's going on in North America, certainly with these supply chain issues. If you're going into the maritime industry and you're interviewing with a company the next year, they're absolutely going to expect that you know what's going on about the backlog of ships in ports around the world. And they would expect you to be able to understand and explain why there's a backlog. There certainly is no shortage of articles on this. The Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Business Week, The Economist, all of them now are covering this supply chain crisis. So that's one thing that we need to pay attention to now. But in general, you should be paying attention to what's going on in an international basis. Pay attention to sanctions. Pay attention to tariff wars. For instance, when the Trump administration put tariffs in place with China, that affected a lot of business overnight. They did the same with Turkey. And so you need to know how international affairs and what's going on with governments around the world and business, how that affects the world that you're going into. So be working on a weekly basis on your international knowledge. And I would also say to get involved in networking, to learn about international knowledge, Go to professional industry associations like transportation clubs, certainly the Propeller Club, get involved with local chapters and go to the meetings. A lot of them will have speakers speaking about these really pertinent topics that are going on in the business. And so that's another way for you to get that knowledge. And if people are interested to know about some of the international organizations, aside from the Propeller Club, of course, you can also reach out to me and you can find me on LinkedIn and I can point you in the direction of some associations that I belong to that are available on an international basis. But work on your international knowledge. Very important if you're going into maritime and logistics and supply chain. Technology in the future. You know, several years ago, we used to talk about as an industry, blockchain was the big buzzword. And I would say it's still important. And there are various initiatives going on within the maritime industry that draw on blockchain architecture to secure, let's say, the data and the workflow. But when I talk about technology of the future, I really mean in a broader sense. And that's the simple things like being up to speed on MS Office. And you should be at the point when you come out of school that you're an advanced Excel user, for instance. With data analytics and the digitalization of the industry, we're crunching data, and Excel has made a huge comeback in the last 7 or 8 years. So know Excel, be the expert in your office when you go to work on PowerPoint so that you can help executives out with presentations they have to make. Know the functionalities of Word. If you get the opportunity, learn about operating systems like SAP and Oracle. A lot of universities give their students free access to LinkedIn Learning. There are a lot of LinkedIn Learning courses on Excel, on SAP, on Power BI, on Tableau. So take advantage of those things. Certainly YouTube, you can find a lot of good information on YouTube that you can train yourself. But the bottom line is that as you come out of school, your companies are going to expect you to be the bright red shiny ball when it comes to technology. And again, things as simple as MS Office, or possibly as complicated as getting into having some SAP experience, or at least knowing what those types of things are. What I'd also throw in with technology in the future are things like robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, and how we were starting to automate various back office processes. And a lot of people talk about this. So you need to at least be aware of what areas we see that will go to sort of this RPA or this robotic process automation. And so as you're in school, you know, they say that any human decision that takes a second or less can now be done by a machine. That's changing exponentially fast. So as students, you want to be thinking about, how do I future-proof myself? And so you want to be looking at positions that are managing people, using creativity, driving strategy, coming up with things like that. Some of the back office accounting functions and bank reconciliations, things like that, those are going to be done by computer, even some computer service or customer service things. So you want to be thinking about where the technology is going in the future. And again, think about this in relation to your resume, that story that you're building about yourself and how you can incorporate these things, learn about them and get exposure to them. Social media. You know, if we went back to when social media was first stopping, a lot of people would say to you, be really careful about when you're out in bars at a party or something like that, and there's pictures of you that show you holding a drink or something like that. That to me is not as big a deal anymore. Certainly there could be some pictures of you on the internet, maybe drinking too much and things like this that could get you in trouble in an interview if some company saw that. But what I would tell you to focus on now more when it comes to social media, and I put, one second, I'm just going to let a couple people in. I put this picture here of the U of H Facebook page. And so what employers now look at, more than trying to find pictures on you, and you can expect employers are going to Google your name, and HR department's going to Google your name to see what they find. They're really looking at what you write on LinkedIn, what you write on Instagram, perhaps what you're writing on forum pages, maybe if you're on Facebook. And so be really careful, or on LinkedIn, be really careful about what you put out there in writing. That gives sort of an inward look into exactly who you are as a person. And you don't want to be that person when they see what you've written, that you're sort of trolling people and putting sort of controversial stuff out there. So be really aware as you're coming through school and getting your education, be aware of what you're putting online and writing, more so than pictures. and police that social media. Writing skills. You know, it sounds obvious, but our writing skills, it's basically like working out. And if you don't use it, you lose it. So you need to find ways to practice your writing. And I know sometimes when people are interviewed, they're asked to provide a writing sample. I know of students that have interviewed in the maritime industry, and the company that's interviewing gives them a topic and says, all right, you got 30 minutes to write me 1 page about that topic. And on the spot, you have to write something. Of course, your resume needs to be written properly. Mary Ann's going to talk about that. Cover letters need to be written properly. But it is something you need to work on. You can certainly work on things like this with projects that you're doing at school and research papers. You can write for school newspapers and publications. The other thing that I would say is to read about writing. This book here, William Zinser's classic On Writing Well, I've read it a couple times. I highly recommend it. And then also, because it has to do with writing, we've lost, and people talk about this all the time, we've lost sort of this idea and skill of writing handwritten notes to people. Don't be afraid when you meet somebody at a trade association meeting or through business to send them a handwritten note that you appreciated meeting them and you look forward to talking to them again. This is a famous handwritten note. This was when George H. Bush left office and Bill Clinton came in, and George Bush was big for writing handwritten notes to people. And this was a famous note that he left Bill, wishing him luck and all the best and when he came into office. So for sure, work on your writing skills. It may come to pass that you'll be in an interview and they're going to ask you these things. When you come out of school, we want you to have some amount of leadership ability, but even more importantly, when you first come out, you've got to be a team player. And so think about, as you're working on your education, where can I get experience as a leader? Where can I get experience as a team player? Group projects are a great place to get both of those things. Maybe there's a leader on a group project and there's a team on a group project. School organizations, student associations are also areas where you can work on your leadership qualities and your team player qualities. And when you come out, again, companies expect that you've gotten your education, you have got to have some amount of leadership skill balanced with being a team player. And being a team player means being able to work with people from different cultures, different ideas, different backgrounds, different ideas on business problems, and being able to find a common ground and work together to find the solutions. And if you have some examples of that when you go into the interviewing stage and applying for jobs, even better. You need to have a sense of urgency and work ethic, and you need to be able to get this across. So they talk about here like this 5 criteria for an exceptional work ethic. You give a damn, you do what you're going to say you're going to do, you do what you say you're going to do, you focus, you take initiative, and separate your professional and your personal life. Really important. When you walk in the door, you leave the personal side outside and you get to work and you do the work and you leave that behind. Taking initiative. Do you ask your colleagues, for instance, can I help you before I leave for the day? You look like you're swamped. Taking initiative on projects, being able to focus on what you're doing. And when we talk about sense of urgency, I like this quote from Jack Welch, former CEO of GE. And he said, if the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside, the end is near. You know, we talk about companies that are coasting. And unless you're always building and adding momentum, you're coasting. And we know that when things are just coasting, eventually they're going to stop. And so companies always have to be looking outside and staying ahead of what's outside. And I would say as a student, you need to think about that as well. Are you staying abreast of what's going on outside? You, as a student, you don't want to be just coasting through. Another way to look at it is the meter starts running when you start your education, and the meter is going to stop at a certain point. So you've got this finite amount of time to get what you need done, to get it done in that period of time while you're in school. You don't want to be in your last year of school and a few months from graduation and realize that you haven't been involved in any student organizations. You didn't know what the Propeller Club was. You didn't get to know your professors. You didn't get to know who the placement counselor is on campus. And I'm sure Mary Ann will be able to talk about this. I have students that come to me at Texas A&M, they're in their senior year and they're not even sure of who the director of placement and counseling is on our campus. You want to be ahead of the game. The meter started running for all of you. It's going to stop running. And so got to make the most of it. Think about college also as work. You get up in the morning, have a schedule. And I have this bottom one here about staying motivated and making yourself do things. That's discipline. And so that's a picture of Jocko Willink, a Navy SEAL, some of you may know. And Jocko talks about it. You know, the old Stoics, even before Jocko talked about it, said that discipline equals freedom. You've got to have the discipline. So on those days when you can't get through class or you know you got to work on a project, you're not motivated, you've got that discipline to do it. And then those are things that you can put across when you're interviewing and looking for that first job. So find ways to work on building that work ethic and that sense of urgency and the discipline that goes along with it. Public speaking, this is really important. Some people, there's been studies that say they fear public speaking even more than they fear death. It's that scary for some people. So I think we've all maybe been there, that you're standing up in front of a group and you feel like this poor kid. You're shaking, you're sweating, your heart's beating. And I can tell you, even I sometimes get nervous when I get up in front of a crowd. You know, my heart starts to beat a little bit as they start to introduce me and I'm about to walk up on stage. I start to feel my pulse quicken, and then I get up there and I do what needs to be done. One of the things that somebody told me was, in order to be a good public speaker, of course, it takes practice and you got to find ways to practice that. But think about it as if the people in your audience, think about it as if they've paid to come see you speak and you want to give them a good product. And I can tell you from my standpoint, you know, I get up in front of large classes and speak. I speak in front of large groups pretty often. And I'm not really worried or nervous about the crowd size. What I want to make sure is, am I giving them a good product? And certainly when you talk about things that you're passionate about and that you know about, it makes it pretty easy. So always, though, look for opportunities to speak up in class. When the professors ask questions, raise your hand, be willing to say an answer, even if it's not the right one, you know, give that input. If you are working on a group project, volunteer to speak up. If you are in a student association, seek out positions where you have to get up and speak in front of the groups. You know, get up in front of your classes and ask the professor, hey, can I announce that this club or this association has a meeting next week? A lot of times speaking in front of your peers, like classmates, can be a little bit scarier and more nerve-wracking than getting up in front of strangers. What I will say is that we all have faced this before, but with practice and working on it, and maybe find a Toastmasters chapter near where you live as well, that can help. We can all get to the point where, like Jordan Belfort, of course, he went to jail, but he was a great speaker. So be nice, take the high road, and be humble. You know, it says here to be strong, but not rude, be kind, but not weak, be bold, but not bully, you know, be proud, but not arrogant. And what we're getting at here is being nice and humble and being able to take the high road. When you go to work after you graduate and you may get into a dispute with a colleague in another country or in your office, be able to take the high road and diffuse the situation. You know, if you're both sort of going at it and neither person can take the high road, then you may not get a solution to the problem. So I like what this says too. It's the slow road. It's not the shortest way. You know, it's hard to do, but you want to take the high road and you want to get it across when you're in interviews and get it across in your story that you build about yourself, that you are a humble person, that you are a nice person, that you take the high road. Companies want to see that in their employees so that when they have those employees come to work for them, they know they're going to be a great member of the team and they're going to add to it in a productive way. So think about ways to do this. You know, the next time you're working on a class project and it's a group project and you all can't come to a solution and to an agreement on what to do, maybe back off and don't force a battle over it and take the high road and say, okay, I see your point, but find ways to work on this. And again, find ways to get that across to the people you're talking to. Take care of yourself and others. One of the things that I look for in prospective employees when I sit down and talk to them in interview is if they do any volunteering work and if they take care of themselves. I'm interested to know, are they watching, that they eat well, that they take care of themselves emotionally? Are they volunteering and helping out others? That's really important. And they say here too, like, if your cup is empty, you have nothing to pour into others. So you got to be taking care of yourself, making sure that physically and emotionally you're in good shape. So let's face it, college and school can be pretty stressful, but then you need to be also looking for ways that you can help others. And companies really like it when they see genuine volunteering effort and giving back by young people to organizations like Propeller Club, maybe to the Salvation Army. The Seafarer Centers are always looking for volunteers around the world. Find those opportunities to give back. Again, for me as an employer, when I see someone that gives back already as a young person, that means probably when they come to work for me, they're going to be one of those people that before they leave for the night, they're going to ask their colleagues if they can help them out, because that's in their personality. So find ways, of course, to take care of yourself, very important. And then as long as you've got yourself in good standing and you're doing well yourself, look for opportunities to give back and to help others, very important. Professors and mentors, get to know your professors. I have so many students that sit in the back row that never introduce themselves to me. They come, they don't participate, and they're missing out. Get to know your teachers, your educators, your professors. They are there. They will bend over backwards for you, do everything they can for you. You just have to show that you also are there to do what you need to do for them and that you're fully committed to the field. Seek out mentors. This is probably one of the most famous mentors ever, Yoda. And it says here, when the student is ready, the master will appear. Seek out mentors. You can't really force mentor relationships, but seek them out in the industry. And you'll find some of those will be mentors for your whole career. And I would also say that you as a young person, you're never too young to be a mentor to somebody else. And part of that giving back, look for opportunities on campus and maybe with other organizations where you can mentor other young people to help them out. So find ways to work on these things, get to know your professors, find mentors, and build that into your story. So come full circle. This is Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps, I think it was in the Brazil Olympics, won 8 gold medals, which was a record. And so I heard his coach recently on a podcast, and he was talking about Michael, and they were sitting at breakfast, and he thought it was a good opportunity. He didn't want to put a lot of pressure on him, but he said to Michael, do you realize you have the opportunity, I think, to beat Spitz's world record of 7 medals in Olympics? And Phelps hadn't really thought about it. And they talked about it over breakfast. And he ended up winning 8 gold medals in that one Olympics. And so the way I equate the Olympics to you in college, it's not too much of a stretch. All of our education institutions, whether it's Massachusetts Maritime where Mary Ann works, Texas Maritime where I am, SUNY, also around the world, our other international friends that are in maritime education, we all turn out very, very good candidates and students out into this industry. You have to find a way to stand out. So for Michael Phelps, everybody that made it to the Olympics was an outstanding athlete that he went up against. And so back to the standing out, you have to find a way as a student to stand out from that pack. It's your classmates and it's your competition at the other schools as well. And it's competition even from non-maritime education institutions. So I can really guarantee you, if you follow these attributes that we went through today with this presentation, and you can build them into your story and have real concrete examples of them, you are going to stand out and you'll be the Michael Phelps, let's say, of our industry when you come out. And so Michael was against a strong field of swimmers. Every one of them was worthy of being in the Olympics, but he did the extra. He put in the extra work day after day after day. He had the discipline to do it. And the students that I see that come out and have the great jobs waiting for them, the really good, interesting, well-paying jobs, those students have done the work. They've built these attributes that I see. I didn't develop these attributes. I've just seen them over the last 20, 30 years of people coming out of college and who really stand out. So you want to be that Michael Phelps. You want to come out and you want to have done the work that makes you stand out from that competition. And again, we put out great people from all of our learning institutions. So what can you do to make those steps? And so the solution and the time is now. And now I'm going to turn it over to Marianne to talk about, if you've built all these attributes into yourself, now how do you turn that into that great job that you want to get in the industry?
Thank you, John. That was great. I took lots of notes and I may even refer to a few of them, but that was
Yeah,
fantastic advice.
it's a bit of a drink from a fire hose, as I like to say.
It's a lot, but it was wonderful. Thank you. I'm sure the students got a lot out of it. So let me just share my screen here and then get rolling. Let's see, there we go.
Need some help? You're all right.
So I think I'm good. If you can, someone can tell me, is it up?
Yeah.
Good, thank you. Okay, so you are making your story right now, all the students that are out there, as you just heard, and that's probably the hard part, to give self-analyze and all that. That's the hard part, but that's so important to do before you actually start your job search. So I am part 2 of this session, which I'm calling sort of like the nuts and bolts. Now that you know what you want to do, you need to put things in writing, as you heard, resume, cover letter, interviews, etc., and start your job search. So what I did is I combined about 10 different workshops into about 20 slides. So it's going to be a total crash course in how to package all of your attributes and start looking for a job. So bear with me because it's a ton of information really fast. Part 2. So this is sort of like your to-do list now that you're ready to go. But before you even listen to what I have to say, please make sure that you use your career services office on campus. I find a lot of students don't do that. And the folks there are, skilled in helping you with your job search. And that's why we're here. Also, there are lots of resources out on the internet, including things like YouTube. They have great videos you can watch about, the 100 most common interview questions, things like that. There's articles everywhere that are very helpful. So make use of all those. So here we go for your job prep course 101. Oops, someone's trying to get in. Hello. The first thing, resume. Start your resume freshman year, sophomore year. It's a 1-page marketing tool. You want to highlight what you've done, your background. Maybe when you're a freshman, there's not a lot on it, but if you update it every year, by the time you're looking for an internship or a job, you have more information on that resume. It has to be perfect, no errors, or employers tell me they throw it right into the trash if there are any typos. And believe it or not, we ask every year how long employers spend looking at a college student resume, and it is between 15 and 20 seconds is how long they look at your resume. So you want to make sure it's very easy to read, simple, clear format, left to right. And if it's great and they put it in the yes pile, then they'll look at it again and spend longer on it. An important point here at the bottom of the slide, you can see the ATS system. The automatic tracking system is used for large companies. And that is when a computer is actually doing the first scan of the resume, and they will just put it into the read pile if they find words on it that match the job they're hiring for. So you want to make sure that you look at the job description and that some of the words on the job description can be found on your resume. Otherwise, that computer scan will put the resume right into the please do not read pile. Cover letter. A lot of people think cover letters aren't important anymore, but honestly, they really are, because you can have your resume, but if you don't open it with a like an introductory brief short cover letter highlighting what you can bring to the table for that specific role, your resume is not as valuable. So do your homework, find out what makes a good cover letter, find some sample cover letters. There's nothing wrong with looking at some that work. talk to the professionals at school, have somebody look at your resume and your cover letter for you. And the great thing is you can write a different cover letter for each job or internship that you're applying to. Again, no mistakes, no errors. And if possible, find out, I know a lot of students just put dear search committee or to whom it may concern. If at all possible, we recommend that you find a person's name to write it to. And that may require you calling up the company that's advertising the job. Ask who the director of human resources is, or if you can send the letter specifically to a person. It just is much more personal. Interviewing, I have 3 different slides here, so I'm not going to go over everything here for you because it's way too much. And you can find all of this information different places. Certainly I'll share this if anybody wants this presentation later. But at the beginning, you need to be prepared for any interview that you are lucky enough to get. Your resume's goal is to get you the interview. Now that you have the interview, make sure you're prepared for it. You know what the company is all about, what they do, what job they're advertising. You can do a lot of research online about the company, about employee reviews, find out who's interviewing you, and make sure that you're ready to address what's on your resume. They'll have gotten your resume in advance and talk to you about your resume. So make sure you're ready to answer questions when they want you to elaborate on something that you did in school or your degree or what your favorite classes are, things like that. You can find all the top interview questions. I guarantee, 80, 90% of the time, the first one will be, tell me about yourself. So be prepared for that question. And basically we tell students that's your elevator pitch. And you can use that other times in addition to it at an interview. You can use it, say if you're at a career fair or a conference, and basically it's about 20 to 30 seconds, little summary about you, what your major is, where you go to school, where your interest is, things like that.
Hey, Marianne, just
yes.
real quick. One of the things that my friends in the industry tell me when they have college students interviewing, I would say 99% of all interviews end with a question from the interviewer, and that's, do you have any other questions for us? And they're always surprised that the students don't have any questions to ask. And so I always tell the students, you have an opportunity to ask this person about their career, about the company. So it always saves some questions or how industry things are affecting their company. So that's one of the things that I tell students is that companies are always now saying that students don't ask enough questions themselves in that opportunity they have in the interview.
Absolutely. And I know anyone here on the call that has been in a position where you're interviewing somebody, if they don't have questions, to me, that says they're not that interested. So excellent point. So on the interview day, make sure you're dressed professionally. You listen a lot. Don't just do all the talking. The basics, turn your cell phone off, things like that. Bring your resume, take notes also. Oops, sorry, I'm having trouble admitting people. Okay, John, can you keep your eye on the admit button?
Yep, I'm taking care of
Thank
it for you.
Appreciate that, thanks. Bring a copy of your resume, bring a notepad and take notes. Get the contact information for the people that interviewed you so that later you can thank them. And as John just said, bring questions, because insightful questions shows how interested you are in the company and in the position. Obviously, after the interview, follow up with a thank you. Think about how it went and if you're actually interested in it, and then hopefully you will get a phone call and a job offer. Certainly, if you don't hear back from them, you can follow up. And every so often, there will be some interviews you have where you don't hear back from the company, and that happens hopefully not too often with you, but get ready for your next interview. Don't get too bummed out about that. Something that's will help you tremendously when you're looking for a final job at graduation is if you've done some internships. And I know here at the Academy, we require students to have 2 of them to graduate. Some schools it's not required, but I would recommend you do get as many internships as possible. And there are so many out there because employers use internships as a way to recruit professionals and get students in the pipeline so that when they graduate, you're trained a little bit, and it's kind of like a test run. A couple companies have told us it's a long-term interview. Are you a good match for the company? And then for you, you can see if the company is a good match for you. You get some good hands-on work experience. You can increase your skills. As John mentioned with Excel, for example, all employers want young adults to have very strong technical skills. You need to be a crackerjack with Excel. So having an internship helps you with all of this. Lots of networking happens at internships. Stay in touch with people you meet. Everyone in the maritime industry, all the people at this convention really like to mentor college students because you are the next generation of workers coming along. So stay in touch with the people that you meet during an internship. They want to help. And internships includes everything, apprenticeships, job shadowing is a great thing to do. Whatever you can find out there is wonderful. And I guess I should add, they're not all paid, but honestly, it's worth the experience because if you get a job out of your internship, it doesn't matter if it was unpaid. Okay, now that you've done kind of a little bit of the nuts and bolts, the resume, cover letter, interview practice, and have some internships under your belt, you can start kind of doing your job. You're looking for your job, whether it's your dream job or your first job, or just kind of analyzing what it is you want to do. You have to do all those things John talked about, but consider your values, your skills, what you're interested in, and kind of do an assessment. Make sure you're always proactive. You can't sit back because no one will hand you a job at graduation. You've got to be proactive your entire college career. Always be prepared with, doing all those things we just talked about. Don't give up. It's a lot of work. So be persistent, I tell the students. And always, no matter whether it's social media, interview, networking, always, always be professional. There are so many different ways to look for a job. There's not one or two ways, there's probably about 100. But slowly start building your network, join clubs, activities, volunteer is such a good thing to volunteer and pay back, as you just heard. But employers also like to see that on your resume. It's a good way to network, and it's just a good way to make yourself feel good. If you haven't yet joined the Propeller Club, if anyone on the call hasn't joined, I'd recommend you join the student port at your school. And if there isn't one, you can talk to me about starting one up. Because that's a great way to network. There are so many search engines on the internet these days, ways to look for jobs: Indeed, LinkedIn, Monster, so many of them. Here's just a sampling of them, but there are new ones all the time. The federal government has its own website, usajobs.gov, which is full of internships and jobs. Navigating the website is a little bit cumbersome. It's actually really difficult and takes a long time, but you can watch a whole video on navigating that website and applying for jobs on usajobs.gov, but well worth it. Working for the federal government is a wonderful career. Some other things you can do, there are professional associations that can go with any major that you can think of that any of you have, whether it's logistics, supply chain, if you go out to see marine engineers, maritime, marine insurance, whatever it is you're majoring in, you can find a professional association to join. And I have found that they love to give students free memberships. So always ask if they'll waive the membership fee if you're a student, because I find that they usually will. I mean, just look at the Propeller Club, they waive the fee for the conventions, which is wonderful. So as I said, they like students to be learning. Another thing you can do after graduation is, if you're not sure what you want to do, I mean, it's a wonderful job market, as you just heard, but you may want to take a year or two to do something else before you start working. There's nothing wrong with that. We have some students, not too many, but some that will, go into the Peace Corps or FEMA Corps. Yeah, FEMA Corps, I know someone that's doing logistics. It's a 2-year commitment. You can always work with a recruitment agency. Mercy Ships, a lot of the deck and engine students will do that. That's volunteering basically for a year. And it's a good chance to do that, but just basically think outside the box if this is the right time for you to do something like this. LinkedIn is so important. I can't stress it enough. We have this humongous workshop just on LinkedIn, and I'm going to spend less than a minute on it. But just look at that quote on the top, and it's so true that your network is really your net worth. And students have a very small network when they start out, freshman, sophomore year, but your goal is for that network to grow and for it to grow with professionals and other people that are somehow related to what it is you want to do or what you're studying. So go on LinkedIn. They have a tutorial right on LinkedIn that will help you set up your, they'll open a free account for you, and then they will help you develop your LinkedIn profile, which is very important. Once you develop your profile that has your degree, your college, your interests, your skills, then you want to follow groups that are pertinent to your degree, follow alumni from your university, follow companies and see what jobs they have. And the more you use it, the more you'll get used to it and you'll know how important it is. If you look over on the right of this slide, the numbers are shocking. How many people, how many recruiters use LinkedIn to look for good quality, qualified talent for their job openings? 30 million companies are on LinkedIn, and there was actually a pretty significant increase during COVID. No surprise, because it's all virtual. But it just is, you know, I hate to do this, but I'll have to compare it with Facebook. The more you use it, your circle expands and then expands more and keeps on going, but you'll see lots of jobs and internships on there. You can also do informational interviews. Say, for example, you meet somebody at this conference tomorrow at one of the sessions, and you ask a question during the panel, or you send a question through the chat. You may follow up with that person, and you may ask if they would be willing to do a very brief informational interview with you. And that's a good way for you to learn about a possible career. There's no pressure on them because it's not a job interview, but always be polite, professional, follow up with them and stay in touch. And many things these days are virtual. It's like today, our conference, here we are, all virtual. And here we go. The whole virtual thing has blossomed. And while it was frustrating for us, I think over the last year or two, there are some things that we have gotten out of the virtual world. And one of them is that we can still hold an international conference like this right now. The Propeller Club is absolutely enormous, full of very dedicated maritime professionals. And I hope that it's a little bit harder to meet them online, but it's still possible. So I hope you'll take advantage and network during this convention. And of course, next year, when it's in person, it will be a little bit easier to do that. But I find the easiest way to meet somebody during a virtual conference is to ask a question. And at the end of a session, if there's time, unmute yourself, raise your hand, unmute yourself, put your camera on, identify yourself, say what school you go to, what your major is, and ask your question. And that's a wonderful way to meet somebody. Virtual etiquette, again, we've got a whole workshop on this, but these are just some of the highlights that are important. You can read this, I won't read this to you, but there is etiquette when you're going to virtual meetings, virtual conferences. Always be professional and it makes sense. Make sure your background is professional, your audio is off unless you're speaking. Always dress professionally too. People think that doesn't matter, but it does. So I will end with what I started with, being proactive and professional, be prepared, which takes a lot of work. It really does. It's not quick. Last month of senior year, throwing your resume together. These things take 2 or 3 years, but be persistent. Don't spend 3 hours a day looking for a job because that could get frustrating and depressing, but certainly spend a little bit of time each day on all of these things that are important. And it is your future. So it's worth putting all the time and thought into it. and asking others for help. Again, don't forget the resources, your own career services office, lots of things online. I find LinkedIn very valuable. And again, I said YouTube, but really some of those are pretty good. When you're doing your interviews, do mock interviews, answer some questions right in front of the mirror if that helps you. But as I wrap up here, and we'll have time for questions, I want to wish all of you good luck with your future, whether right now you're looking for internships or you're looking for full-time jobs. Good luck with all of it. If any of you have questions or want to ask me information another time, here's my information. Happy to chat with you. And I think we saved enough time now that I'm sure some of you have other ideas that I did not bring up. And I would love to hear what they are. If there are any strategies that have helped you along the way, I'd love to hear about them. So with that, I'm going to close mine so that we can get back to the meeting here.
Hey, Mary Ann, just want to add a couple things that dovetail well onto what you put forward there with those good ideas, then we'll open up for Q&A. I can't take credit for this, but I saw a good article that talked about questions that you should be asking yourself when you're starting a new job. But I think these are questions you can ask in an interview. And those are to ask the employer perspective, how will you be able to create value for them? How can I create value in this position? What skills will I need to develop to excel in the role that I'm interviewing for? Are there some early wins that you'll expect me as an employee to get? And then a really good one is whose support is critical within the company for my success as a new employee. And that gets them in the boat with you. So you're teamed up for success. It's not just on you. And through those types of questions, you're going to be really clear about what their expectations are, and they can be clear about what your expectations are. So most of the time when things fail, it's because somebody's not clear about their expectations. So find out, ask them, like, what does success look like in 6 months, in 3 months, in a year? The other thing that I would bring up is that when we talk about remote work and mentors, another question that I would be bringing up with companies is that as an employer, I can tell you I'm worried about young people starting with us in remote positions. They're missing out on mentor opportunities. They're missing out on running into somebody at the coffee machine. They're missing out on that opportunity to build relationships. So it's affecting these young employees who have started work completely remotely and haven't even gone into an office. It also is not good for the companies because we're lacking that connection. And with the job market so hot, we're going to see more turnover because I don't have a relationship with some of these employees the way I would. So as a prospective employee, another thing to ask them about is how are they dealing with, if they are working remotely, how are they dealing with that? And ask about you coming as a new employee, are they cognizant of this idea around that you could be missing out on relationship building within the company? Are they doing something specific to still help mentor young employees along? And then again, with the idea of the info interviews, I love that. And Brian Grazer, who's a famous movie producer that partners with Ron Howard on a lot of movies, he has a whole book called A Curious Mind, where for years he's done these information interviews with people, and he meets with lawyers and doctors and other movie stars, and he's kept track of these things over the years. And just I'll throw it out there, and I'm available too to talk to anybody, just like Mary Ann is. I started a organization initiative last spring in 2020 called The Collective, where I pair up young students in college, university, and even young professionals with people in parts of the industry that they're interested to learn more about. So if that's something that you're interested in, reach out to me. And I've got pretty much every aspect of the maritime logistics and supply chain covered. And I'll pair you up with a purposeful matchup with a professional who you can chat with over the phone. If they're in the same locale as you, maybe meet them for a coffee or for lunch. And it's what Mary Ann talked about, which are sort of these info interviews with professionals in the industry. And so I highly recommend you do that. You know, most people want to talk about their careers. They like being able to give back, as Mary Ann said. So seek those things out. And I guess we can open it up for questions now.
Sure, thanks. Anybody have questions? It's a small enough group. I think if you have a question or if you want to add something that we missed to our presentation, just unmute yourself and go for it.
I saw Joel added here, be a leader and take on a voluntary assignment and do it well. You'll be remembered. that reminds me of when you're at an organization, somebody is in the oil field industry for many years in Houston. They have lots of barbecues here for the oil field industry and benefits. And he always remembers the young people that offer to clean the bean pots after a barbecue is done. So if you clean the bean pots, so to speak, people will remember you, that you're a hard worker and that you like to help out. So I like that from that Joel. And Candy mentioned too, a personal note is huge, to send out to people. So thanks, Joel, for that note about taking on voluntary assignments.
And it looks like Dory Nichols has her hand raised. Dory, did you want to ask a question or add some new ideas for us?
I'll add something to the end of my last comment there, the one that I just wrote on. I think that light bulb picture that John showed really, really encapsulated a lot of my thinking as well. You need to do something to stand out. You're graduating with a whole bunch of other classmates. Some of you going to ships, some of you going to companies, but whoever you're with, you're going to be in competition with everybody. And you need to do something to stand out in the right way. And that light bulb kind of did it. Let me give you an example. We had an International Propeller Club convention about 3 years ago. We had a bunch of students that attended. One of them in a session like this asked some very insightful questions and talked to me afterwards. We got to talking and he spoke to a whole bunch of other people. He was a very smart kid. He went off and got his first job with a industry related company. And as our board of directors was meeting, looking at where we were going to fill openings, we thought of him. And he's now on our board of directors. And he's the youngest member of our board of directors. But he gives us a perspective that otherwise old fogies like me wouldn't necessarily have. So you can stand out in the right way. And it's just good to think about that.
Absolutely. That's great advice.
I think Blessing maybe has a comment. I see as his hand raised, and then Yuri.
Hi, everyone. My name is Blessing. So I'm from Nigeria. And firstly, I'd like to ask if there's a popular club in Africa generally, because I am a student of the University of New Orleans. So I got to know about Popular Club in 2020 when I enrolled to the university as a freshman to study naval architecture and marine engineering. So, but prior to that, I was an engine cadet on board a tanker vessel here in Nigeria, and I had an associate degree in marine engineering before my enrollment to the University of New Orleans. But due to some reasons, I am not in the school. I'm not in the United States to continue my education. So, but basically, I know that it's a different situation for we in Africa. Yeah, I mean, in terms of seeking for opportunities in the maritime industry, and even sometimes it's very, very difficult for us to get key opportunities to work in the industry. But generally, I just like to ask that for a person like us in the part of the world, how can we maximize our potentials and build our standard to enable us to qualify for international positions in the industry? Because I realize that no matter how much you try to improve yourself on a daily basis, to seek for international positions and jobs, you just probably get turned down because maybe you're from Africa or you're from Nigeria and all that. And in regards to that, I hope maybe probably there's a international popular club probably in Africa that helps to groom a student like me and maybe other aspirants to have these greater opportunities also in the maritime industry generally. This is my question.
Marianne, do you know, or Joel, are there any chapters on the African continent that you know of?
Yeah, the closest that I'm aware of is Casablanca in Morocco. And barring that, you could also join. You could also join as a virtual member or an at-large member, as we call it, which is for people who live 50 miles or more from a Propeller Club port. And you can do that by just going to our website. And then there's a little red button on the right that says join our team, and it asks for which port, and you just tell it at large, which is the first one that comes down on that menu button, and you can join like that. And you'll still get all of our information and, you know, see information about what other ports are doing.
And I would say, Blessing, if you want, you can reach out to me. We do some at A&M. We have a student organization and we do twice a month speaker meetings. Now it's going to be, you know, possibly in the middle of the night for you, but you know, you probably realize that if you want to take part in some of these things in international areas around the world, you have to deal with getting up in the middle of the night to take part. Like it's late now. So if you reach out to me, I can make you aware of our meetings that we do on a twice monthly basis at Texas A&M. So I think next we'll go to Northeast Maritime Institute.
Can I just add, for Blessing, I'm sorry I didn't get to meet you when you were at UNO, because I'm a member of the board of directors of the Propeller Club of New Orleans, and would have been nice to meet you. Sorry.
Actually, when I enrolled to the university in 2020, there was a scholarship that came up, and I actually applied. But because my professor then, Professor Lothar Beck, said because probably I haven't taken any classes, so I might not really be qualified for the scholarship. But however, I just try as much as possible to keep connection with the Propeller Club in New Orleans. But that was how I actually connected with you on LinkedIn sometimes, and you accepted my connection. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Yes.
Sure.
And we're going to take one more question because we've got to jump over to the networking where we can also ask more of these types of questions. So we'll take a question from Northeast Maritime, and then we need everybody to jump off and click onto the link that you had about networking right after this. So Northeast Maritime, do you want to give us your question before we jump off?
Yeah. Hi all. Thank you for presenting. Very informative, and on behalf of all of us, we appreciate it. Our question is, say we put into place all those skills that you just spoke of and we do get a really good job, what would you guys suggest once we are in that job, and how to stick out and how to move up quickly throughout the ranks?
Yeah, I would say you need to just work hard, ask for more to do. As Joel said, take initiative and ask for opportunities to step up as a leader within the company. Ask your colleagues if they have work that needs to be done. You know, you might see somebody that's always working late, and step up and always ask for more. Don't be sitting around doing nothing. You know, and when you're starting out in your new job, sometimes it's hard for them to give you more and more work to do in your training, but always be proactively asking for more to do, and that will help you stand out. And I would also say, be careful as a young employee. Don't get caught up in the political BS type stuff at companies. That happens everywhere. Stay away from, as they refer to, the water cooler talk. Keep your head down, do your job, get to know your colleagues, offer to do more and more as a new employee.
Great, thank you.
Yep. So I think go ahead, Mary Ann.
Never mind. No, we should go because we're late.
Yeah, we're a little bit late. So hopefully everybody's going to jump off now, and we'll see you pop up. So we need to go click on that link that's about networking.
See you soon.
All right.
Yep.